I take it back.
Right, we're still gonna have it. Right, we're still gonna have it.
Well, people can wait a minute. He's only had that for a short time. Oh gosh, good luck. So fun. I'll call you about the other thing.
What in a better mood?
When you're in a better mood, yeah.
We'll be better idea. At least I recognize it.
Hey, it's not bad.
Evening and welcome to the regular town council meeting of February 4th, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask everybody to join me in reciting the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ask you to join me in a moment of silence. Moving on to item number 4, adoption of the minutes. We'll look for a motion from the council to adopt the meeting minutes from January 21st, 2025.
Make a motion to adopt meeting minutes from regular meeting January 21st, 2025.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any comments from the audience or from the council for the meeting minutes of January 21st? Hearing none, since we're ready to vote, all those in favor of passing the meeting minutes from January 21st, 2025, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting minutes from January 21st, 25 pass. Moving on to item number 5, presentations. We have Annalise Hafford from Oliver Associates here to talk about the Birchwood project update.
I'll do that. I'll stand up here so everybody can hear me. And I also have Eric Hardy here, that's been working on the project with me, and Travis Jones here for any other questions that might come up. So I'm just gonna kind of go over an update and where we've come, where we are, and what we need to kind of decide tonight. And also Eric has some larger boards that we could show instead of the small prints that I handed out. We could show you the concept of the project so you can see what we're looking to do, what the price that we came up with included. If you'd like to see that, we can do that when I'm done talking. And we'll make it quick, but I thought it would be worthwhile showing you what the project included. So first, I'll just kind of go over the backdrop. This project has been talked about, as you all know, for quite some time. In the original discussions of the Birchwood project, it was prior to COVID or right kind of after COVID, and the numbers back then were probably 4 times less than what they're looking like right now. So that might be some of the sticker shock on this project. But the original concept of the Birchwood project was full roadway rebuild, full drainage improvements, sewer and water infrastructure. And our firm was hired to do the sewer and the water, and we did get funding for both of those, and also have gone after more funding because the water was short. We did get an offer of more funding that at some point that'll have to get put out as an ordinance to officially accept that funding, because there's a little bit of loan involved in that. Initially, we weren't doing the road and the drainage design. Another firm was going to do the work, and due to extenuating circumstances, they decided they didn't want to do it. So we took that portion of the work on, no added charge to the community. We're doing a lot of work for you folks, so we just decided to do it. So we didn't have, a lot of time to get the road done, but we did complete that, did meet with the town, and go over the scope of that work, about 80% design phase, and presented the project. And then after that meeting on August 20th, we did have a public meeting here with town people were invited. Jacob did come to that meeting. And we had the neighborhood meeting with people from Birchwood, where we did go over the set of plans that's in front of all of you tonight, and did talk about the scope of that project being full roadway rebuild, drainage, water, sewer. and presented that to the public. After that meeting, that was, back in August, time flies so fast. We had to take care of a significant number of easements. We had 11 temporary construction easements and 2 major easements that we had to send to the town's attorney to be reviewed because they were permanent easements, and that, was requested of us to send the permanent easements to the town's attorney. And that was also a little bit of time waiting for that to be turned around. As of now, we're still waiting for the 2 permanent easements, and we are waiting for 5 of the temporary construction easements. We've gotten 6 of those back. So we really would like to get most of the easements in anyways before we bid, or at least get, if there's 1 that's missing or 2 of the temporary, I'm not too worried about it, but the permanent construction easements, I wouldn't want to bid it without those, because if somebody doesn't like something and it changes and you bid it, it's not a great place to be. We did do final design by pretty early in November and sent the design to the funding agencies and to the town, so that they would see what it looked like. We got approval to bid it from the funding agencies, and basically they look through it to make sure we meet their funding requirements. And that's mostly for the utilities involved, because as you know, the funding that we have was for the water and the sewer. And the final cost estimate, I worked with Eric and we completed that in early December. And basically our cost estimate, we do a detailed itemization of every single component on the plans that we handed out. We list the tonnage, the cubic yards of excavation, every single component of the project, and come up with what do we think this project's going to look like in 2025. The bidding climate has gone, very expensive in my world, and what we see for numbers. Pittsfield tends to bid very well, from my past experience here, and I think you might get that more competitive numbers than what we put forth. But we did what we're seeing on other projects, so I felt that that was the only fair thing to do, so you could see what we're thinking this project is going to bid at. The water is pretty well funded. We did apply for additional money through the drinking water program, and I feel that that is going to be in decent shape. We have a little over $1 million from, about 1.5 from the congressional funds, and then we have a little bit of money from the drinking water program to pay for the stuff that CDS won't pay for. The sewer is all loan, to be clear. That will end up coming out of the sewer budget. We have a total amount of 1.518 million that has been approved at council level to do that project. But it's just to be clear, it is loan there, but low interest loan. The road and the drain, our estimate was the 3.2 million that I think that you heard a couple meetings ago, where the road was around 2 million and the drain work was around 1.2 million, based on the design that we have come up with working with the town on what the vision was. So at this point in time, there isn't really, I don't have any funding for you for that portion of the project figured out. And I just wanted to kind of talk about some options, because I know that, the desire would be to get the utilities moved ahead and, move this project that we talked about now for quite some time forward. And we were talking a little bit about maybe bidding the road and the drain as an alternate bid, so that the town could reject it if they didn't like the number, and get to see what the bidders in this area would price it at, instead of looking at our numbers. I mean, we do work throughout the state of Maine, and we work in a lot of areas that do bid high, Southwest Harbor, Bar Harbor, and we're working in communities like in this area as well. But, we're getting high bids, high numbers, and, maybe it won't come in that way. But if we do it as an alternate bid, you can reject it. And then just do the sewer and drain, and we can negotiate with the contractor to try to come up with something different. Or we could do, we talked about maybe coming up with a couple other options on the second page of the handout that I gave you. If we just did the drain and came up with options on the road, we could reclaim the pavement that's left in the road and put 4 inches of pavement on it. The only concern I have with that is when you're putting in drainage, you want to make sure that the sloping works, and it's hard to do a project like that when you're doing so much drainage. So there's some options that we can do. So I'm just kind of here tonight to hear what you have to say, and we will help you try to get money. I know there's maybe some congressional money still out there, but it wouldn't really, if you wanted to bid this work for next year or this year, that congressional money is way out there. It takes over a year to get the money once you, get it offered it, so. I'd be happy to take some comments, or if you wanted Eric to just kind of go over the, plans, like, we could do that next, it's up to you.
You guys want to hear Eric go over the plans or?
Yeah.
Question first?
I had a question on the
Yeah.
funding side of the federal funding.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the likelihood that the current administration isn't gonna somehow affect that?
Well, the likelihood, I've already seen impacts a little bit because we run, managing a lot of projects and we
Right.
did temporarily shut down the federal reimbursement. But there's been a, kind of a hold on that. I feel like funding will be impacted somehow. I don't know how. I don't know what will happen. I don't think I'm an expert on what will happen in this world coming up. It's an unfortunate thing to see the funding go away, but I still think there's opportunities for decent funding opportunities for you. I just don't know if you're ever gonna get a grant for that road. It's harder to get grants for road work than it is for utilities, because the utilities can show a deficit of money a lot easier than a whole town. So we're able to show, that we needed this money, but I am willing to keep trying to get you funding. And they've been, one thing about the CDS money, which is surprising, is they have been willing to let you go bid something and pay for it for something else temporarily, then reimburse, which is very unusual. Most funding systems don't ever do that, ever.
Any other questions from the council or audience? Before we have Eric talk about the plans? Yeah, Eric, if you want to present, that'd be great.
I'll do kind of the sides and I'll kind of talk about it and I'll kind of let you guys take a look and then I'll kind of come back around so the people in the audience can see as well. So I'm gonna start the walkthrough up on Somerset Avenue. So we're going from Somerset all the way down to Hamilton. And what this drawing basically reflects is it's just a simple plan view that's gonna show the proposed water, sewer and drain and then the limits of the road reconstruction. Like Annalise had said, it's all utilities and this just kind of shows you how they all relate to each other. So on this particular drawing here, the drainage is in red, the sewer's in green, the water's in blue. And the shading of the road reflects the limits of what the road reconstruction is, as long as, as well as doing like the driveways. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how they are located amongst each other. And in locating utilities, one of the things you gotta do, there are some regulations as far as separation between water and sewer. You have to have minimum distances between those two utilities. So a lot of times you'll see at least a minimum of 10 feet separation between those. So we start with that and then we fit the other stuff in and around that. And a lot of times you'll see a main drain located along a gutter line or a curb line, so one side of the road. One of the other things that this job also includes in the design as it is right now is the main drain is also serving as an under drain, so that the subbase gravels of the road will all pitch to the main drain, which is going to be a perforated pipe. So you'll have all your gravels will be drained, which that gives you a much better long-term, road performance, because it's less likely for you to deal with that stuff. Okay. I'll just grab these out. And so one of the things, if everybody's familiar with Birchwood, some of the challenges are both vertical and horizontal alignments, because the road, not only does it have, horizontal curves, it also has a lot of vertical curves in it. So it's not a consistent slope or profile throughout the whole thing. So it also has a couple of sections that are really flat, and that can be really challenging with stormwater, because one of the things you're doing with stormwater is you're trying to get the runoff out of the road as soon as you can. If you've got decent profile, you can kind of stretch your drainage out a little bit, but when it's really flat, and when you try to have minimum profiles and cross slopes with road designs, sometimes when you're in really flat sections where you can't create, decent profile, What you end up doing is you add additional structures, so you just have more basins because the water's not gonna get out of the road as fast as it would on a steeper profile. And so that's one of the other things that this reflects, is the nature of the curve of the road as well as the profile of the road. There's a lot of different sections, so some of the utilities, when we're doing gravity, like the sewer and the drainage, they're starting at high points, they're going to low points, then we go back up to high points. So there's multiple changes in actual vertical elevation along the road as well as the curves. So I know some people, when they look and they see structures and sometimes people are saying, why are there so many structures? Sometimes it's because you have to put structures in to make turns. It might look like there's a lot of drainage structures on this, but some of that is one, because of the curves. Two, because of the nature of the profile. You'll see additional structures and sections of the road that are more flat than others. And the other thing too is we had a lot of good feedback from the neighborhood meeting of people that like specifically identified drainage issues at their properties. There's a lot of runoff coming from behind houses that eventually make it to the road. And there was a lot of feedback that the road water was going onto the private properties and was becoming issues for the homeowners as well. So the combination of the two, we were trying to resolve by adding in additional drainage features on areas where there's a lot of runoff coming from behind houses and kind of traversing through private property and eventually making it to the road. And the other thing we were trying to do here was have a road design that kept the road runoff in the road and didn't have it shedding onto the properties. So that's the other thing, that by doing the road reconstruction and kind of changing the elevation of the road, adding the drainage structures, one of the things that we were achieving in that was better maintaining the runoff in the road itself. So that's, I think, see some familiar faces from the neighborhood meeting. You guys have heard this pitch before, but we got a lot of feedback from people during the meeting as well as after the meeting. And we took a lot of that feedback. So we made the changes that people had referenced in order to try to resolve some of those issues. So that's reflected in these as well, and in the set of drawings that you guys have. So. The other thing you'll notice is that one of the things we also try to focus on when we're doing new utilities, and if you look at the, it's not really shown on this drawing very well. If you've got the plan set, we generally will lay out new utilities with, we kind of reference as like a consistent alignment or a consistent offset. So basically along the entire route of the road, you know, generally say, we're gonna put the sewer main at like say the middle of the lane, and it's gonna traverse the entire length of the road in that location. The water main is kind of symmetrical to that, as well as the storm drainage. So those utilities are, you know, especially when you have three, they're all kind of, you know, traversing down the road at consistent locations. Sometimes you'll see existing utilities, things are crisscrossing all over the place, or the alignment is odd. You might see a utility start on one side of the road, cross the middle of the road, and end up on the opposite side of the road. And sometimes like managing those types of utilities can be challenging if you have to, you know, get back at them again. If you do a project like this where you replace everything, you're less likely to have to dig it up. But it also makes it a little bit more consistent for utility operators when these lines have consistent locations within the road itself. So that's the other thing that this reflects. You'll see everything sort of has a very symmetrical, uniform alignment as it goes, you know, down the entire length of the road. Yeah. The other thing I'll add too, like for an example, at the intersection of Hamilton Terrace, we were extending the new utility stubs and doing the road reconstruction and the pavement restoration, like extending it up the intersection, so that in the future, if anything has to happen further up Hamilton, you don't have to get into Birchwood. Everything's extended well up into the intersectional ways. So those utilities, if you ever need to, well, at some point you'll need to pick up from the new stubs and continue on, you won't have to get into Birchwood to do that. They're going to be extended up a way, which sort of does, that's kind of a better way of leaving a utility. So when you have to go back to it and continue to replace the old stuff, you don't have to disrupt as much of the new work that you just did. One of the other things that's reflected on here as well, and Annalisa mentioned about some of the services. Is at a minimum, the services are extended to the right of way, so your new sewers, your new water services. If we have particular places, if there's drain stuff that we're picking up, those are getting extended at least to the right of way. Some of them, where there's easements involved. We may have some services for one house that are actually on the neighbor's property. So some of those, we're actually moving the new service over into the limits of the property that it serves. And for those, we have to go beyond the right of way a little bit in order to pick those up and then bring them out to the main road. But in addition to the main lines being replaced, all the services are being replaced well outside the limits of the road and to the right of way. So that if those need to be picked up and extended to a house, or if there's an issue beyond that, nobody has to get in the road in order to manage those because they're extended out past that, past the road limits into the right of way. The final one, which when we get back down to the bottom at Hamilton Terrace. So at the end, we're finishing up the new and we're tying back into the existing utilities at the bottom. Down here. We're ending the road reconstructions at the limits of Hamilton. We're not reconstructing the actually out in the Hamilton, but we'll replace right to the end and then just have some extra there as we extend our new section. Any questions on kind of a general overview?
Sidewalk, you gotta do anything?
No sidewalk. No, we're gonna replace the sidewalk on the upper end, but there's no proposed sidewalk.
There was originally, but I guess you got permission to cover it. The sidewalks are there, you just big.
The old one.
Yeah,
But I'm just curious if they were gonna maintain, or you just.
the one further down by the school, there's like an area through there was a little bit of sidewalk.
Churches, Terrace.
Yeah, well, no, there's a sidewalk with a path that goes over to the school. You're talking about that area? It's more like a paved shoulder or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remnants of.
remnants of a sidewalk.
Oh,
That particular
asphalt.
section, we were not gonna replace. We're gonna take it
I'm
out.
just curious.
Just pave the road. The sidewalk up on the Somerset end, that is gonna be, that will remain, but it only goes so far and it stops. Yeah.
Where does the storm drain dump out?
Everywhere.
Do they dump out in the ditch down in Hamilton Road?
Yes, it would eventually, that particular portion, because of actually, the drainage has its own there's like two main discharges, because there's one about halfway down, which actually that does discharge over towards the school and a drainage system over there. But at the very bottom, this system will daylight in the ditch down at the bottom on Hamilton Terrace. Yeah. And there's a fairly large culvert there. That's part of that is we're gonna replace that culvert and fix the structure on the upstream side. And then this particular one kind of has its own daylighted pipe in that ditch along Hamilton.
Yeah, we were, if it's an old cast iron pipe, you know, the old jointed, I don't know what they call them, but put it together.
Yeah.
Can that be, can you put a different pipe inside it and rather than dig up everything, can it be lined with like a chimney liner? Can they, as long as it keeps the consistency of the size you need?
I mean, it may depend, are you talking water or sewer? The sewer, most of the sewer, there would be, a lot of the sewer here is not located where it should be located. The answer to your question is sometimes you can use an existing pipe as a hose pipe.
Okay.
And you can line it, you can also pipe burst it, so you can pull a pipe like, and then you can actually break that pipe and you just use it as a conduit. So there are a couple of methods to do that, but, you still have to deal with the services and also depends on the size.
With all the three utilities that we were doing on the street, there wasn't really enough room to keep the original sewer where it was, and a portion of it's truss as well, which is kind of junk, so it, you
Yeah,
know.
and some of it's, not standard size, it's smaller.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of this. When you coming along, what, I'm not ready, but you can hook me up, if I gotta replace that pipe.
Well, you're just gonna get simply tied in. You'll
Oh,
get tied into the right of way, connect on your existing pipe there and,
okay,
yeah. I mean, on the sewer side of things, generally, you know, day before, say, hey, we're gonna be replacing your line tomorrow. If you're kind, you won't use it while the guys are working on it. But there's a lot of communication and that, I mean, in a day, they will extend the new line and then just tie on the yours and they'll end at the right of way.
If I got a little bit of time left.
Yeah.
There one more question.
Okay,
My filter coming into the house, it's black.
on the
I
water
paid
side.
it, yeah, on the water side, so I don't know why we can't pressure the money source and say, look, this is a health hazard, as far as I'm concerned. You know, we're drinking water the filters don't even handle. So I don't know why we can't push that a little bit, say, and say, you know, this is a health hazard. This new administration seems like they're on board with anything like that.
Well, the water line is being replaced on the street, and the manganese is naturally occurring from the groundwater, but we put it into the system. And it is below the limits, and the limit have a limit, but it is effectively this raising for sure. And we do a lot better job flushing nowadays and maybe half year, so that we'll be but you know, flushing, trying to work on changing the but we are, the water and the sewer utilities are fully funded.
Okay, good, that's.
Not, it's the road and the drainage, to be clear, that we have to work amongst here to figure out what we're gonna do.
What's the dollar amount of the project that doesn't have funding right now?
About 3.2 million.
So that's up to the town.
It,
No, what hasn't been funded?
what hasn't been funded was about 3.2 million.
That's the roadway.
The road and the drainage.
So
How much
sewer side of it? 6 million
Total.
Oh, that was different than what we talked about last meeting.
Yeah,
So this is even better news.
yeah,
Oh.
Well, I wasn't here at the meeting, so I'm not
Yeah,
sure what
it's,
we talked about.
right down the bottom of this first page here.
The 3.2 roadway and
And
drainage.
to be clear, and I just wanna make it clear again, this is our estimate,
Yeah.
it's not the contractor's number.
Right.
But that's all we can give you at this point,
Right.
You mentioned the sewer part of it was a low interest loan.
yes,
Would it be possible to get the drainage part of that also low interest? Since
Yes.
you're- Okay.
yes, so I did check into that, and I should have mentioned that, that's a very good question. And it's coming into the timeline of that, with the DEP, there is drainage money sometimes available, it's certainly worth trying, I'd be happy to do that.
How much of the
For you.
3.2 here is drainage?
A one,
1.2.
about 1.1, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
1.2,
That-
sorry.
that's the difference.
I mean, it's worth trying, you know, we're very happy to try to do what we can to make it better, but I can't, you know, I can't tell you numbers that you wanna hear, I have to tell you what we think it is.
But you,
Question is,
Well, that's, I mean,
When do you need to have an answer on funding before, if you're gonna start in the spring?
well, to be honest with you, where it's already February and the way it is right now, when we bid a job right now, there would be no starting anything until probably July or maybe June if it was highly aggressive, but I just, things are so different than they used to be.
Sure.
It's very difficult being an engineer nowadays.
Yeah. Is this kind of thing where you need to get everything done in a season, in a construction
It's
season?
probably gonna be longer than one construction
Maybe
season.
two construction.
So I mean, my reasoning behind bidding it with an alternate was just to kind of get a feel for really where are we? And if we're lucky, we do that and able to get the funding for that during the bidding, we can extend the bidding to out to 120 days. So that we have 120 days after the bids to come up with a plan. Not always the best plan, but, and it's not always the best way to bid something when you have your base bid fully paid for and your alternate is kind of, but it's an idea of something we could do, or we could make changes to the design. I'm just concerned about with all the drainage that we're doing here. If we short on the road design, the drainage isn't gonna work the way we had it intended, but.
so you're seeing numbers that are roughly 4 times higher than they were
Yes.
3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
For paving and
Paving,
all of that?
everything. I mean, even and then we're not talking about this here, but like a treatment plant upgrade. I mean, we used to be able to do them for like 8 million. Now they're $25 million. I mean, everything's just ridiculous. It's just, and I don't see it I'm not seeing it, a change real quick. I don't know. I mean, you do construction. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, there's signs, right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't wanna drag your feet, cause it's been drugged long enough. But
Yeah.
It's like. You can see on the horizon, the interest rates are loosening off, and more, and houses are already starting to free up a little bit more, like it's starting to, but we're the tail end of it usually on the stuff that we work on. so.
right. And the problem is, if you wait another year, then we're not gonna have enough for water and sewer. And again, these are our estimates. Maybe we don't, we're close. I think we're close on the water and sewer.
So is there any value in taking what you guys have put together and, I mean, we work with customers all the time, it's like, this is what I wanna do, how do I get there? And sometimes they have a Cadillac budget, and sometimes they have a Chevy budget, and sometimes they have, they're gonna walk, right? So, is there any
We'll go
value,
horse
we
budget.
value engineer, is there something that we get the same end results? And value engineer it a little tighter,
Well, we looked,
especially on the roadside?
yeah, I mean, the things that Eric and I talked about was we could go maybe with a thinner pavement. Not great.
How long is
I'm
that
just-
been there?
It's not a, but it's not a, when it comes to these types of private utility road jobs, it's not like Cadillac versus, I mean,
No.
Cadillac would be if you had granite curb, concrete sidewalks, street lighting, benches, you know, you get streetscape. But when it comes to just straightforward road design and
Yeah.
drainage, there really is, there's no like Cadillac versus a, like, you know, and
I guess
it's just
we-
not offending anybody, they're making a model of their vehicle. It's kind of not, it's really not that comparable, just because this sort of reflects pretty standard design for a road, for
Yeah,
a drainage
And a
system.
wet area, we put the under drain into
Yeah.
in the road when we talked about maybe taking the under drain out, but
Right.
It
I
does help.
understand what you're saying, but from a constructability point of view, I've also seen a lot of stuff that gets put on paper, they're like, "Ooh,
yeah.
constructability wise, we ought to do it this way, because
Yeah.
this makes a little bit more sense.
I mean, there are
So,
things
all I
that
would
we-
offer is, should we lean on some resources locally? Some contractors that do this for a living to see if they have any input. I'm not saying I wanna change anything or should change anything, but maybe we should lean in a little bit and see if it's practical.
I mean, that's part of why I was trying to,
Is the install practical?
just basically, the
Yeah,
installs,
roads, like finished products.
oh, it's very, very,
Oh, very practical.
very practical. I think the thing is, if you bid it locally, I think you're gonna get that, because during the pre-bid is when they all come at us like, well, let's try this, or, you know what I'm saying? We get a lot of input from contractors during the bidding process.
So, do you guys deal with a lot of municipalities that would self-perform this on the roadway side of it?
No. They don't,
Maybe
I can tell you right now, knowing your situation here, you do not have the ability to do that
I
here.
don't know, I don't think we have any municipality.
And we work in
that
some
do
pretty
self-
big communities with big,
Perform this type of construction.
right, Belfast.
So if
is a-
we had a superintendent for hire, right? So if we hired someone to lead the project, hire dump trucks, and we have equipment operators, is it feasible that we could ever? I mean, road work is not that difficult, honestly.
I understand that, but that's up to you guys if you wanna do that, but I personally
You would
don't recommend that at all. I don't think it would be a very good end product.
So what's the two options that we have on the back? Second page,
Yeah, my basic, those, well, we probably have more options than that, but go ahead, yeah.
understood.
Yeah.
What's our lifespan looking at in the two options? You know, what, obviously, it's not heavy traffic, right? It's all mostly slow residential light traffic.
Pretty fast.
Well, faster than I'm sure you would like.
Only gonna get faster with a nice road.
I think my concern with doing it with the options we put here, which is why everybody wanted to do the full rebuild
Yeah.
from the start, is what's underneath the roadway pavement is
Sure.
the stuff that's in the road isn't great from what we've seen during our dig jobs.
Yeah.
And because it tends to be an area where we do have dig jobs going on from time to time.
Your pavement will be broken up and heaved and moved in a relatively short time frame.
Even on that last option.
I mean, yeah, you could mitigate that to some degree, like with a reclaim or something like that.
Right.
But by the time, I mean, I suppose by the time we get done digging all the trenches in there, there's not gonna be a ton of stuff to reclaim as part of the concern as well.
Gotcha.
But I mean, there are ways to, I mean, it's certainly gonna look better than what it looks like right now. If, you know, but if you, I'm not trying to suggest that you bid something you don't have the funding for, but then you would really know what you're faced with, and then we would have a contractor a low bid contractor that we could work with and do some value engineering that way, come up with ways to do things maybe, better.
Does the town have a gravel supply?
Sure.
Cause that is something that sometimes comes into play where a municipality or a town will say, we'll supply the gravel. You know what I mean? Then you're not buying it, but the contractor has to truck it.
We'd also wanna know the quality of the,
I mean, I'm saying, that I don't wanna leave anything out, I
Yeah.
think we gotta look at this, I mean, if you run that out, with what that would do to our mill rate, you know, I understand all sides of it.
I
I'm
looked at
trying
what
to
the
keep it
payment
towards-
would be, you know, and I did a 30-year.
Yeah.
I know that's not popular for roads, I get that, but I just did it just so I could know, it was like about 196,000 through the bond bank as an annual payment. That's based on the interest rates that they have in their calculator, so.
That's about 10 cents.
And yeah, we could do a thinner base. We could come up with, I mean, Eric and I could come up with some things to save a little bit of money there, because the gravel itself was quite expensive.
What are we looking for estimates for asphalt right now? What are we looking at?
We're using, in bid projects, that's what we're seeing,
400.
yeah. If the municipality goes out to do their normal paving, you don't see that never, but in bid jobs, that's the numbers we're seeing. Does not mean that's what you'll see here in Pittsfield.
Municipalities,
understood.
yeah,
But-
and most municipalities, not spec paving either. So there's no QC, there's no compaction testing, it's just kind of like, let's lay the hot top down on the road and
Right.
usually it's different. I mean, municipal tonnage prices don't reflect what you would get on a project.
I think we were under 2 years.
Yeah, that's no prep, that's just,
Yeah.
we're putting pavement down,
Gotcha.
yeah.
The sewer loan, is that 30 years? The sewer loan?
The sewer loan is 30 years, but it could be 20. Then the water is mostly grant. There's a
Well,
little
just-
bit of loan associated with that.
Just looking at the fact that it's a subsidized interest rate, 30 might be a good deal at a really low rate, just depending on what that subsidy is. And if you can put the drainage part of it into that 30-year low interest rate, then you're talking about a shorter term on just the road part, which we might be able to shrink down once the bids come back, you know, could be a lot better. So
Yeah,
Right,
I'm trying to see it as 4 pieces instead of 3, water, sewer, drainage,
yeah,
and then road.
right. I mean, we can try on the drainage. My only concern is there's so much competition if we don't get it. I wouldn't want the eggs to all be in that hope basket, you know what I mean? But we will do our very best.
We got a lot
I
of
just
hope.
know that it can be eligible. I'm always optimistic until I'm pushed down into the corner pretty far, you know?
Me too. All you can do.
Oh, Mr. Link?
I just was curious, is the reason for my 800% increase in my sewer bill to help pay for that loan?
Not
Or is
yet.
that totally
That is-
separate?
That is totally separate, sir.
Excellent.
Totally separate, yes.
Gotcha.
That that even has not hit the budget yet. That loan is not in this next budget year.
Yeah, what you're seeing right now is not
Okay,
what you'll be seeing in 6 months.
so my last question, and then I can shut right up,
No, you're good.
is following up on, Carl's question was, he has a problem with magnesium or some dark stuff. I have squid ink that comes out of my bathroom faucet on occasion.
You have what?
Squid ink, black.
Oh, that's
solid.
manganese. It's manganese.
Same issue.
It's the same thing.
No, it
Yeah.
is,
It's, the manganese
it's like
is
a
black.
gallon of absolutely thick black.
Manganese is black, and manganese is common in the state of Maine in groundwater. And it coats, over time, it coats the piping in the distribution system. And the flushing activities in the very far past were not aggressive enough, and we have been working really hard to get that out of the system twice a year. And until that comes off of the pipes, then every now and then some lets loose. But it is not a health hazard. I understand it's aesthetically very displeasing.
So I am second or third on the water line from the tank.
Mhm.
So-
And that area is more of an issue from the past, and it does tend to accumulate there. Yeah. But it is manganese.
Excellent.
But the actual test results that we have are under the drinking water. They're They're secondary standards, not primary standards, which means they're not health hazard standards. But we do test for the manganese to check it, and we do meet those standards, except obviously when something sloughs off the pipe. That's what you're seeing, and we're working really hard on trying to address that. We do add a sequestering agent, not to complicate this further, to try to help mitigate that. But as you can see, there's not 100% guarantee that it's all removed from that. That actually tries to tie it so that it doesn't come off the pipes when it does come out of solution. So I hope I answered your question, but I do know that that's what it is. It's been an issue in Pittsfield for many, many years.
So what do we need to do?
Well, you got a question, sir?
Yeah. I'm a
Can
new,
you state your name and where you live?
yeah, Thomas Kitchen at 127.
Thank you.
Terrace.
Thank you.
So I'm a new property owner in that unit. I got both a question and a comment. But I've noticed that they're talking about road fitness, fitness. I noticed there's a lot of heavy equipment cuts across from Somerset Avenue to Highland Avenue. I don't know why they go through there, so. You know, it's not like how to just get down to the intersection. But, you know, over and above what's going on now. I noticed that there's some pretty heavy equipment runs through there. And the other question is, the surface drainage, right in front of our place there. But we're like the first place coming into from Somerset Avenue.
First place on the right.
On the right. So I hadn't encountered it until now, so I wasn't sure what the plan was for the surface water there, right?
The prior owner was Malin Turner, and we would get water in the summer, so we put a little bit of landscaping in front of that house.
Yeah, so you're at the start of the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where are you getting water from? You're getting a lot of runoff from where?
From the road.
From the road, well, yeah,
That's
so
part of what we're trying to do with the road.
Yeah, the road
Better
design
grade it so it doesn't run. into
was gonna keep the road water in the road.
Okay, so you're more on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the combination, slightly lower where we need to, and then also doing some grading along the properties, the driveways.
Okay.
So as the water lands on the road, jets to the gutter line.
Yeah.
It's gonna be going in the basins, but you know, if it's in between basins, it'll turn and go down to the next basin.
Yeah.
But when you're at the crest of the hills, you couldn't have as much, because you're sort of just below the grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get more of it going through the soil when I go through the hot tub.
Okay.
The hot tub's fairly new. So it's probably gonna be higher than your road. My house, my driveway.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I know the next house gets a lot of water, and the very, you down the road, you just turn, but it is right.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah, and the other, you know, between dropping the road a little bit, the other thing too is when we rebuild the driveway aprons. If the driveway is below the road, we actually have a detail that we use where we start the apron on an opposing slope.
Okay.
And then we have to go through a transition section, so if you noticed on those drawings that I was going around with, if you notice some of the driveways look longer than others.
Yeah.
That was to reflect. So we will match the driveway where we need to make the transition out of the road to not only keep the water in the road, but depending on the elevation of the driveway. You know, we have to make gradual transitions for, cars to get in and out, so you don't hit a muffler or something like that. Or if it's low or high, depending on that delta in elevation, that's why you see those varying. Sometimes we can do an easy quick match and it works great. Other times we have to go back a little bit further in order to make that work.
Okay.
But let me add something, it's going on over here, what he's saying, there is a lot of traffic that goes into the, I think it keeps me, that's, to take them that way.
Yeah, I mean, as designed right now, it's 18 inches of new gravel with 4 inches of pavement, which is adequate for.
And I hope nobody tries to change it, because, they didn't do it right in the first place, let's do it right this time. Because that road is never built, we got grass going up through the cracks.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the audience? for Annalise and Eric and company. So for tonight, oops, go ahead, sir.
Can I ask council a question, like, what's the council's plan at this point, or?
That's what we're.
No problem.
right now. So tonight you need to know whether or not we want to go to bid and how we want to go to bid.
Well, we'd like to know that. I mean, I think you would like to know that,
Sure.
but I'm not trying to put the town under any pressure.
yeah, so-
at all.
Timeline
Yeah.
wise, I mean, this whole thing won't be, like, we can't do it until the next budget process anyway, right? Is this kind of getting bids for our
This would be
26 budget?
This would be getting bids. You said something about 180 days to look it over and. not
Yeah, so
necessarily-
120 days. So if we, if we bid it,
Mhm.
we could give we could have an agreement in there such that the contractor has to hold their price for 120 days. And that would give the town some time to figure out what we're gonna do about the funding opportunities and evaluate what that does to the budget. Now, for the water and the sewer, any loan that gets added on because of that won't hit the budget until a year after substantial completion. Because of the fact that that's just how that funding works.
Right, so how long is the bid process?
So we would, if we were to, say if we were to, if I get told I'm gonna advertise, go ahead and do it. And say we had all the easements, which we don't, but just say we did, then we would, probably set up a pre-bid for sometime in March. And then a bid opening for probably 3 weeks, maybe, so we'd have advertised for 2 weeks or so, have the pre-bid. Then maybe a week in between and then the bid opening, so it's at least a month to a month and a half. So you
And then we
might,
have 120 days from then.
yeah, 120 days from that. So say you're in mid-April, I'm not trying to be wishy-washy, but it's hard for me on my feet to get you the right days, but say mid-April, you've got a bid from a contractor, then say 120 days after that.
Right. So I mean, we can't move on anything within this bid. I mean, we can put it out to bid, but we can't implement it until the new budget.
Yeah,
Which it times up pretty nice, because we'll get the bid back, we'll know what we're dealing with. And then we put it in the 2025-26 budget.
yeah, and if we just reject the bid because it just doesn't come in, where we need it to be.
Yeah,
we could Start over again.
There's options. You could accept the base bid and go with the utilities just to get that underway. And do the rest of it after, which I know isn't desirable because you're gonna have to put trench pavement in the utility part of it. Cause you can't leave the road gravel, obviously. But there's some options.
The water part of it is a grant, right?
So the water part is mostly a grant. However, we did feel we needed to get money for soft costs for the water because the congressional money won't be spent on engineers. So I did apply for some more money for contingency. So at the bottom of the handout that I gave you, $460,000 was provided. You didn't accept it yet because it's very new news. But the drinking water program offered the town another $460,000 with $150,000 of that. $115,000 of that as forgiven money, as in grant. On top of the rest of that is grant.
Do we have a timeline to get the SEDS money spent? So we don't want to get up against the deadline that we lose any money.
So on this particular project, you do not have a problem timeline yet. The sewer, obviously, they don't want to have you, because at some point in time, they're gonna make you come back and have that voted on again, because it's been a year since you've had the sewer money. The congressional money, you have 5 years to spend it. The drinking water money you've just got. So you're not up against, on this project. There'll be, the meeting I come to next time, there is a project we're up against on it, but there is not really a bad timeline on this. If we could bid it in the spring and you're gonna need a couple years to build it anyways, because it's a pretty large project, really.
Yeah, I mean, the road's 2,500 feet, from end to end, so it's not a small job.
Well, I was just getting ready to ask that question, because bidding pavement right now does not necessarily make sense if this are 2 construction years
They often,
project, because they're not gonna hold that price.
Well,
And we're gonna hope that we don't want them. to
they
hold that
sometimes
price.
do hold it, and sometimes they ask for an escalator, or we provide that as a bid option, putting an escalator in the bid such that they have the right to ask for that
Yep.
increase. But what I do is I put an escalator and de-escalator in the bid, because I've seen it go both ways.
Right.
So we could certainly add that into the bidding. We did that in Callis, and it worked for us both ways actually on that job, where we got a little bit of credit and also had to pay a little more, but that's fair to both the town and the contractor.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, would there be downside protection on any bid?
We could
Because
definitely do that.
Obviously we all hear the news, right, drill baby drill, so the price of crude hopefully is gonna be coming down, right? And that's the biggest contributor to the asphalt costs.
Yeah, so
Right,
we
so-
certainly can put an escalator or de-escalator in there.
Okay, that, I mean, not,
It's usually based on the DOT pavement, escalating prices is how.
And on the other materials, most contractors are just buying all the pipe
right,
now.
cause paving loan's not even gonna be approved in work, we wouldn't act on that until 26, 27,
Right, probably, yeah.
right?
Well, we will have already,
We can commit to the project, but we won't act on, I mean, I guess we could with the escalator, de-escalator on it, but. I don't know what the risk would be. I'd wanna see how that bid was written up, I guess, before. How we would
well, we
raise
have,
that, so we have downside.
yeah, we
I
have
think we
to,
need a lot of downside protection on it, because my hope is that we're gonna see a considerable savings on anything. Petroleum related.
It's done frequently, DOT does it all the time,
Okay.
and they have a formula for how they do it, so how we've done it is we've just adopted their methodology.
Okay,
And put that right into and we could do we haven't bid this, so we can just add that into our specs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have it in there right now that I'm aware of, but we can certainly add it in there.
And the contractors are very familiar with it.
okay, but what we would do would be to vote to approve the bid. But we wouldn't be voting to secure the loan
right,
until budget season 26, 27. So
well,
we would actually, yeah, cause we got 25, 26 coming up now, which we would do
well,
the drainage and any remaining loan portion for. Cause we wouldn't want to. Secure the funding now and make a first loan payment on a road that isn't even touched for a year. Cause the pavement's not gonna get done until the end of summer of 26 at earliest.
well, you're not gonna bid it out, like, isn't that a weird way to bid it out?
When the project's like half done.
Well, like-
That's what I'm saying, that's what we were just talking about, cause you're bidding it now, but you're not even gonna think about paving for another 16 months.
You gotta bid it all at once, though.
We would bid the project all at once, figure out what
With a
the numbers really
contingency.
were.
Yeah.
Right.
Then make a plan for the town side of how to come up with that.
Right.
But you wouldn't actually have to pay anything until after it was done.
We wouldn't take the loan, we wouldn't encumber the loan funds or even do that.
Cause you can go to
26,
like the
27.
bond bank,
Right,
Right,
you wouldn't pay anything on it until you spent it.
yeah, you have to spend it and then close out the project, substantial completion, and then,
Exactly,
cause you have to do interim financing.
right.
So yeah, we don't have a loan payment until everything's done, but we'll have.
So that's how they all
And you'll
work.
have
yeah, 'cause I don't want
interest.
interest, I don't want to secure interest rates. at
But the
today's
interest,
rate.
well, the project can pay for the interest too, like that can be, at least I know sewer and water, we'll talk a little bit about the road and the drain, but. We're working with other clients who are using the bond bank money and they've been able to, actually, they've made money on their money because they got it when it was low. And then the
Right.
interest rates went right up and they made a lot of money on their money, but that probably won't happen in this
No,
scenario.
I would see interest rates, my hope is that we
Going
would see
down.
interest rates, right, the Fed's hopefully gonna be making some moves in the next month to make that happen, so,
It would be a messy thing to have it bid not together.
okay.
Which is not much, it's not any different than any other.
Well, but
Paving.
we had kind of started to do where we encumbered the funds and we voted and approved everything at one.
Oh, yeah, that way,
We didn't want it holding over, right?
that's right, and we didn't want a new council to cancel our projects.
Right, because we don't want to get halfway through this, that's correct.
So we'll have. We have a lot of funding lined up, we have a little piece that we would have to figure out with the road, we'd have, get the bids back, know what the actual numbers are, then we'd have 4 months to figure out. Where that other piece would come from.
Correct.
And then we just make a decision during that time whether we go forward or just rebid it or whatever.
Or negotiate with the
Or
local.
negotiate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But so at the next meeting, we would vote to go out to bid. Cause you need a resolution to go out. to bid.
right, And you still have to get easements before you even wanna put it out to bid, right?
We need to get the 2 permanent easements before we go
Oh,
out
okay.
to bid.
So where's,
Because the two, I mean, we talked to both of the people, and there doesn't seem to be any major issues. I don't know if anybody's here from the permanent easements. I don't think there was any major issues. It was just more they wanted time to review it, and all of that. But
okay, so once you get those, you'll, and at the same time, you're developing a bid. Yeah, an RFP to go.
we've
out to
already
bid.
done all of that. Everything's
All right.
already except for the pavement de-escalator, escalator. But
Right.
what we could do is the next meeting, since I'm gonna be here anyways, we could agree or not agree. We could vote on going out to bid contingent upon us getting the easements that we need. And then we would work towards that. And then once we got them, we would let you know and coordinate a date, when we would have a pre-bid conference here at the council chambers.
And you can have the RFP, escalator, de-escalator.
It'll be in,
By
In the contract doc.
it'll be in our contract documents, which are unfortunately about that thick because of all the funding.
But it'll be available by next meeting.
I would have that available to share with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
Right,
I think we.
It'll be
all that information.
and it'll be an alternate to do the road part in the
Yeah.
bid in the bid.
Yeah, and the drainage, the part that you don't have fully funded yet.
And the drainage, well, we can
But
look,
we might wanna
but
consider
we can look
putting that in the.
to roll that in with the,
We would have to be clear, if I wasn't before, we would have to apply
Yep.
for that money. You wouldn't be able to use the sewer money to pay for it, but I might be able to get you money to pay for it separately.
Okay,
okay,
It's the same, basically the same program. It's just
Same
another
program,
application
it's
we have to
just-
do.
But I don't know how popular it'll be because it's not a connected system. I just know that drain is eligible. I just don't know if you'll get it,
we can try.
but I will try. I always try.
Yes, you do, thank you, we appreciate it.
but, oh, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I think I'm asking the right question.
We'll let you
Does
know.
the loan? I know you do. Does the loan for the sewer get paid by the users of the sewer?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes,
Where the rest of the project is going to be paid by the taxpayers? Whether we borrow and pay back, I'm trying to, the road project especially, I'm trying to understand whether. How much more. Our mill rate, but also our sewer rate is moving based on whether this project is funded in 2 separate ways? Or are we just gonna bump the mill rate and so that the whole town pays for the sewer aspect of it?
no, the town doesn't pay for the water or the sewer, it's just the users pay for that.
but the
Right, am I
town-
correct in
You're
that?
correct, and the town would pay for the road and the drainage. And
Taxpayers don't pay for water.
So
and
the
sewer.
800% increase that I'm feeling now is going to go up another few 100% based on that.
You
That's why I
betcha.
just wanna understand,
It, the,
because I think everybody needs to understand.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
that-
against this project.
that's
I've
how-
been on that road for 10 years in a house that somebody else lives in, so.
we did have a public meeting in December on the sewer rate increase and explained, how that was gonna impact everybody. And what he's speaking of is he didn't have a minimum bill and had a very low bill. And now you have a minimum that you pay, which is still very low compared to other communities. I know that it is, but I know
So
it's,
is that every person or just commercial?
no, every single
I'm
resident,
asking, I don't
no,
know.
no, no,
Yeah,
every
yeah.
single person has a minimum bill now for sewer, that.
Mine
Yes.
was wrong. It was-
Yes, I understand it was an error and all of that, but I don't, that's not my thing, but the presentation, it was the same for everybody, every resident in the community has a minimum bill. Will have a minimum bill, it was supposed to.
My apologies for wasting time on something that I should have known.
No, you're good. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Sewer never had a minimum bill, now they do.
Yeah, it's very,
That's the
very unusual for any
difference.
community anywhere to not have a minimum bill, because you can imagine if a meter's broken, then what does the town have to bill that person? Is it not fair to somebody else? And a minimum bill is needed for an operating O&M budget. It's very common, it's unheard of to not have a minimum bill. And they did it as the first step because they knew it wouldn't be popular, understandably. But there will be more sewer rate increases over time to slowly go up, but it won't go up 800% next time because you already have a minimum. Usually
Right.
sewer increases are, 10 to
Mhm.
30% or so, just to be clear. But yeah, your bill was like $5 a quarter, right? And now it's $65 a quarter, which is what it's the fair amount for people to pay, so. But that's what I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So. Does that answer your question there? Yep, okay.
Yeah, I mean.
No, sorry, not you. That's all right.
I speak for everybody.
Yeah. So is the council good on all of that? And that'll be on the next agenda. All right. Thank you. We will move on. Public hearings, there are none. Reports, there are none, as Jack is just, for those of you who don't know, this is Jack Kluke. We just hired him. He started on Monday, new town manager of Pittsfield. And
Oh,
yeah, so we welcome him. He doesn't have a town manager's report because he just started, so.
It's been busy, talking to people, learning a lot.
Yeah.
I showed up
Yeah.
thinking that.
Moving on to old business, there is none, and new business, I don't know if you want to read those since it's old in here. Resolution 2509, oh, no, yeah, what's these, resolution 2509.
thank you. So helpful.
Yeah.
Resolution 2509, resolved that the town council appoint Jack Kluke as treasurer, tax collector, general assistance administrator, purchasing agent, and economic development.
Look for a motion from the council.
Make a motion that we approve resolution 25-09.
Moved and seconded. Are there any comments from the audience or from the council on resolution 2509, appointing Jack to all of those seats? Thank you, folks. Thank you. There are no comments. Since we're ready to vote, all those in favor of resolution 2509, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 2509 passes. Moving on to resolution 2510. Jack.
Resolved that the town council appoints Jack Kluge, town manager, as official representative to the General Assembly for the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments, KV-COG.
Look for a motion from the council.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 25-10.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any comments from the audience or from the council? Hearing none, since we're ready to vote, all those in favor of resolution 2510, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 2510 passes. Moving on to resolution 2511.
Resolved that the town council appoint Jack Kluke, town manager, as official representative to the General Assembly for the Kennebec Regional Development Authority, KRDA, also known as First Park.
Look for a motion from the council.
Make a motion that we accept resolution 25-11.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any comments?
Can somebody explain the first part thing again? And is there a dues fee or something that the town pays, and if they do, what do we get at?
Jack, do you know?
That's on my list. I can answer that for you at the next meeting.
Okay.
Perfect.
We'll get an answer. Yeah, I know we've always been a part of it. And,
Yeah, but I mean, what's the benefit of it and.
Jack will answer that at the next meeting for you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have a good
No, that's
answer.
okay. Give you something to do on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. Look for a motion from the council. Oh, you already did. Okay, just kidding. Any comments from the council or the audience on resolution 2511? There are none. All those in favor of resolution 2511, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 2511 passes. Moving on to public discussion comments. Any comments from the audience? James?
If there's somebody who wants to go ahead.
Nope. I thought somebody was raising their hand, but it's you.
I need a benefit.
There's a 5-minute time limit. I forgot to mention, sorry.
New rule. Jack
Yeah.
on every-
Yeah.
Don't forget about it.
300 words.
Just a couple of, just
300 words.
Just a couple of updates on some stuff. You're gonna hear some word out there about the summer concerts. We are starting to that, we're gonna have a really exciting summer, we've got some great acts this year. And just to think about the plant the seed, and I mentioned it to Jack either yesterday, it must have been yesterday. June the 19th may be a national holiday. The week's not over yet, so we don't know what's happening. However, that's the birthday of the town. And back a while ago, we had decided, or we had thought about, because we had some money left over from the bicentennial, that we would do a little celebration for a birthday party. Well, that never happened, but maybe this year, because of, this is our 10th year with the concerts and so forth, and maybe we can do a little birthday. We have a local person who's gonna be the entertainment for that night. And we could do a little birthday gig for the town if you guys wanted to get involved in that and do a couple of extra special things that night. Because it's not an even year for the birthday for the town, but it's a tradition that a lot of towns do celebrate. And it'd be nice if we could maybe start that and do that.
Sure.
So that's one thing. The second thing is tomorrow night, we do have a community heart and soul meeting. You're gonna hear rumors that we're tearing a place, a restaurant in town apart. That won't be true, but we will be at the restaurant. Tomorrow night is probably the biggest training session we're gonna have. Because once that's completed, we will start going out into the community and looking to get stories and so forth. And so you're gonna see a lot of press going out about that. And it's been interesting, some of the information that we've gotten back in a preliminary form in terms of, what people would like to see and what they'd like to do. And, unfortunately, a lot of those kinds of things maybe cost a little money and all of that kind of stuff. But, once we get through tomorrow night, and because we moved from phase 1 to phase 2, we got a little bonus that we can spend. So we will have a little supper that night. And then Kat will be here to do the training. And it's really, the training is really very good. And, it's something that if the council is interested in something like that, she might be willing to come in and just kind of give you guys an update in terms of, what's involved in everything. Because we're not looking for the town for next week or next year. And I think did they leave? Yeah, they did. I think that we have to really plan for 5, 10, and 15 years down the road. And that has not been the trend over the last few years. And there's a cost that's associated with that. And now, unfortunately, we're paying the cost. So I think some of the stuff that we're going to see when we first do the initial interviews and get the stories about the town is going to see, everybody's going to say, my God, we can't afford this or those kinds of things. But we do need to establish some priorities, and that's what I see the community heart and soul doing is coming up with some priorities to present to you guys, because you make the decision. But hopefully you'll have some pretty good feedback from the community in terms of what they see. And Natalia's been on the committee, and we've learned a lot so far.
Yeah, it's been nice.
And so that's kind of where we are.
Excellent. Thank you, Jan. Appreciate it. Are there any other comments from the audience?
Yeah, I got one.
Yes, sir. State your name and,
Carl Grillis, 158 Birchwood Terrace.
okay,
Because of the safety concerns we had when we lined up at the old corner cupboard, where the corner cupboard is.
Yes.
Where the solar place was. Kids unloading their instruments, going across the road and everything. I'm part of the subcommittee from the Legion that wanted to see if we couldn't use Purinton's parking lot. I did get that permission from Brian down there, the manager, And we won't be able to use the road, but we'll be able to use that parking lot. So we're calling 10 o'clock in the morning. That's where the parade, Memorial Day Parade, the 26th of May
Oh, okay,
is when they'll line up there if everything goes right.
yeah, excellent.
That's the plan.
So that's where the band will meet?
Everybody
Okay,
will do.
good.
And of course, they have to throw a wreath in the water there.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a little more convenient than trying to have that little Girl Scout throw that wreath out there.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, so hopefully that's gonna work out, but there'll be more about it. I'm just part of the subcommittee. on it
Sure.
To see, but,
Thank
and
you.
welcome aboard. Take care, good luck.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. There any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, any comments from Pete?
I'm good tonight.
You're all set? Alrighty, thank you. Craig?
Welcome, Jack.
Thank you.
That's it.
Natalia?
I just very much appreciate Annalise coming and explaining. She always does a great job helping us digest all of this. Come on to it. And Jack, welcome. Thank you for your leadership already. I'm really excited that you're here.
Thank you. Lots of great stuff going on.
Here?
I just want to welcome Jack, board, and hopefully we're gonna get not hopefully, we're gonna get all work done in the next 3 years, my last term of the council for sure, so.
For sure.
For sure.
Can't say that good.
We're gonna get some stuff done. Sorry for coming in late, I had the opportunity to play my daughter in basketball, so I didn't want the backlash from not showing up to that, because she would have said I showed up, I didn't show up because I was a wimp or didn't want to get beat, so.
Good
that was
job, Dad.
fun. I ask a lot of questions and I'm not serious about using the gravel as a pinnacle. But what my point is this, my point is that there's really nothing that we should leave untouched. I mean, we should look at every option, we should look at every piece of equipment, every employee, because this cost is real. I work with dairy farmers every day, if they were faced with costs like this, the project wouldn't happen. So instead of building the new barn, they put the roof on the old barn, and make it go for another 5 years before they can do the capital investment. Our budget, these costs of $400 a ton for asphalt, no one can afford that, like, it's not sustainable in any economy. So I'm afraid we're at the peak, right? And I feel like cost is gonna start coming down on some of this stuff. We don't wanna lock ourselves in to making a 30-year mistake on an interest rate. And so my point is I'm not serious about some of the stuff I say, it's basically starts conversation, gets you thinking outside the box. Think about the employees you have, think about non-conventional ways to do the work. Because a lot of the stuff that happens out there, I mean, you don't have to be, 30 or 25% profit margin on a project. We can cut that out by doing it ourselves and getting our own dump trucks, right? And hire a guy out for $95 an hour to haul gravel. It's available. I mean, there's people in this town, there's companies in this town that could help us do this. And I think we gotta start leaning pretty hard on those resources, because it affects them too. So, but I'm excited, it needs to happen. That road is awful, the sewer is awful, it's ridiculous, to be honest with you. And I feel like we gotta start looking 5 and 10 years ahead, but it's like, when you don't go to the doctors for 10 years, that first bill of health you get, it's not like you just go, oh geez, I'm good for another 10. You're just like, I gotta make these corrections for the previous 10 years, I didn't go see you, right? So that's what we're feeling, that's what we're dealing with right now, is just not being present and not really paying attention to business for the last. I'm not even gonna say how many years, it's been a long time, I feel like, and we gotta start, and it's gonna be we gotta catch our breath too. So. That's all I got.
Good, thank you. And I'll close the evening, I think Eric brings up great points. Birchwood Terrace is just one project of many projects.
Right.
It's honestly, pretty overwhelming. We got Birchwood, we got Honeywell, we've got Library Street, we got the Main Street project, we've got equipment that hasn't been attended to, we've got, just all of these things that we got water and sewer that hadn't been, rates hadn't been raised in 10 to 12 years. And now you have to make up for that when they should have been raising them the whole time to maintain the systems. And, we're fortunate but unfortunate to maybe be the council that's sitting here and dealing with this astronomical task in front of us, but I think we've got the people that can do it. And to Eric's point, we need to lean on the people that know this stuff. I'm not gonna claim to know, you know, half of what I should know on some of these projects, but I'm okay with that, and I know how to go to somebody that knows these things, and we need to just lean on those folks and communicate and work together as a community to dig ourselves out of this, and I think we can do it, and I think, Jack, you're the person to lead us in that direction. So I look forward to it. It's definitely a challenge, but I think we can definitely get there. So with that, I look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned. Now we're adjourned.
These-
Ask me tomorrow.